Right. Bon dia. If we'd waited another week, this might have been the first ever lean Kanban Catalonia. Many of you know that I'm Scottish. The Catalonians here in the audience will understand. According to the website, this venue holds 100. So thank you for squeezing in. It's cozier than perhaps I realized. All right, so first, real Lean Kanban Spain. In the past, we've done Lean Kanban Southern Europe, and we shared that with the Italians. And maybe we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to stick with Spain, but we can't promise to come to Barcelona every single year. How many of you are from somewhere else in Spain here, not Catalonia? A few, actually quite a lot, all right. So maybe you'll come back next year if we go to Bilbao or Madrid or somewhere else. Right, great. So I want to talk about changes that we're making in adopting Kanban, making it easier, making it a little bit more predictable, and getting past some of the basic impediments that people have encountered. So in order to do that, we're introducing something called the Kanban maturity model, and I'm going to explain what that is and sort of where it came from. And my understanding is that you have a copy of the poster in your bag, maybe the little poster. This one, right? So you might find this useful as we go, this one here, as we go through this. But first of all, let's talk a little bit about commitment. So commitment's a very important concept in Kanban. You don't have a pull system unless you fully understand commitment. So I want to explain that a little bit better. Imagine we've got this really quite simple Kanban workflow here for a software development and testing organization. And the idea is that the work to the left-hand side, that might be referred to as the backlog, the ideas that we haven't started yet, they should be uncommitted. And then when we pull them into the system, that is the commitment point. Now, what does commitment actually mean? It means that the customer wants the thing developed and that the delivery organization are promising to do it for them. How many of you in the audience have been married or are married? You understand commitment. When is the commitment point? Did any of you get engaged before you got married? No? You just sort of showed up at the church, Peter? Yeah? Just randomly. So usually the commitment point is the engagement, because this is the point where you're both agreeing to actually make it happen. This is the engagement, right? This is the point where the customer's saying, will you marry me? And the delivery organization says, oh yes, please. And now we're going to plan the wedding. Now, of course, at this point, we wish to avoid aborting after commitment. Now, it's an available option, but it's embarrassing and expensive, and there's lots of psychological and social pressure to go through with it. Why did you say yes in the first place if you're not going to go through with it? So at this point, we start to plan the wedding, but there is still the option to cancel the whole affair. And write to everyone who's accepted the invitations and tell them maybe it's not happening. Meanwhile, did any of you who have been married at least once announce the wedding date on the day you got engaged? You produced the diamond, she said yes, and you said, that's fantastic because I've already booked the church. And the member of the clergy's already agreed, and the hotel for the wedding party, the reception is already organized. You don't do that, right? You get the engagement first, and then you think about when is the wedding going to be, and you start scouting the venues and making the arrangements, and then at some point later, you announce when the wedding's going to happen. Because in real life, we're much better at managing risk than we are when we show up to the office to do a job we actually get paid for. There's an irony there, that we're better at doing stuff we don't get paid for than we are than the stuff we get paid for. How many of you in software development tell the customer, yes, we're going to do it, and guarantee the delivery date on the day you said yes? Probably everybody in this room. Possible exception of the Odigio guys. Instead, what you can do is you can agree, yes, we're definitely going to do that for you, and we'll get started on it. And the ticket can work its way across the board. And when you have a lot more confidence that you're actually going to be able to finish it, that's when you promise the delivery. And in Kanban, we refer to that as having a two-phase commit, that you commit to get married, and then you announce the wedding, and then you close the second phase of the commitment at the wedding ceremony. So if you can remember the whole concept that pulling cards into a Kanban system and delivering them to your customer when they're finished is like the whole process of getting married, then you'll make some significant progress in risk management. Now what I've done with this one is I've moved the board here off to the right-hand side, and this is our commitment point in the middle, and we've got some upstream activity. That's called dating. Now, the downstream nowadays gets referred to as delivery Kanban, and the upstream gets called discovery Kanban. So this is our committed work, and the further we go to the left-hand side here, the more options we have available. So imagine you're a young kid, you're still at school. There's a lot of options available to you. Maybe you date a few of them. Maybe a few of them all at the same time. And this is all right for a while. But eventually, you have to narrow the options down a bit. And there's different stages of commitment happening here. So in this example, we've got quite a lot of options, 48 of them altogether. But we gradually narrow that down to somewhere between 4 and 12. Well, and we have different reject points. That first date didn't go well, so maybe I don't want to see him again. And then we've been dating for a while. Maybe we should we should declare that we're now in a relationship, and our Facebook status changes to say in a relationship. Maybe we'll even move in together. And all of this is testing the chance that we might actually want to get married later. So as time goes by here and you narrow down the options and you have these reject points, you spend more money. You invest more in a fewer number of options. At the beginning, you invest a very small amount of money in a large number of options, and gradually you invest more and more until eventually you buy the diamond. That was a big investment. Now it's time to pop the question and hope that she says yes. And hopefully you've done enough probing. This is lean startup style information acquisition. You've probed the situation and you've got about 99.5% confidence she's going to say yes when you produce the diamond. And then you spend money converting the option. Did anyone have a free wedding? No. There's no such thing as a free wedding. All right, so now you understand commitment a little bit better. How about our commitment to you? is Lean Kanban. The Lean Kanban brand, you see, we use it in different colors for different things. The purple is our education brand. The orange one is our conferences brand. The dark red ones are professional services, consulting brand. We have this thing called enterprise services planning. It's kind of big scale Kanban. And for a long time we've used this slogan, power and simplicity, because individually the ideas that we teach people are simple. And that's powerful because they're easy to learn, they're easy to adopt, they're easy to copy. But in the aggregate, all these ideas are very powerful. We also use this phrase, pragmatic, actionable, evidence-based guidance. That's what we offer you. We don't teach you something unless we know it works, unless we've seen it somewhere else before. Unless it's pragmatic, there's no point in wishful thinking. If you can't get it done, if you can't implement it in your organization, if it isn't affordable, or if it requires human beings to behave as if they're robots, then it's not pragmatic and it's not actionable. And this is actually the filter, the bar that we use for selecting the speakers at the conference. If they're not offering you pragmatic, actionable, evidence-based guidance, we don't want them at our conference. We don't want them diluting our brand. Right? We don't want people here with thought experiments or wishful thinking. We're committed to easier enterprise scale adoption, and the Kanban maturity model's about that. And we're committed to Lean Kanban Spain. This won't be the last one. We were a little conservative with our risk management this year. We could have had a bigger space and sold a lot more tickets, as it turned out. And we're committed to developing the Spanish market, and you'll see some of the actions we're taking. That we announced the Kanban maturity model in India last week, and here in Europe for the first time in Spain. And that's not an accident. That we believe that the Spanish and the Indian markets will really benefit from the maturity model. So this is the poster, that the little marketing version of the poster that you have available to you in the bag. And this is marked as an alpha release, this particular poster. And what we mean by that is a community preview. At the moment, all the detail of this is only available to our community, the accredited Kanban trainers, Kanban coaching professionals, some of our clients. And that will continue until November, the Lean Kanban Central Europe, when the official public beta will start. And the beta period will run for about 1 year. So this is really still a draft, and there will be changes to this, and you should, if you're part of the community, you'll be alerted to the updates during October, and the public launch, and you'll be able to download it from our website from early November after the Lean Kanban Central Europe in Hamburg. Right, so how did this all come about? How do we get there? I only have an hour, so I can't teach you all this stuff, so I'm going to go through these very quickly. And no doubt you'll see something and you'll have a question about it, and if that's true, look for someone who is wearing a white lanyard. Let me demonstrate this. Somewhere here is my badge. Nastya will model my badge, although she doesn't want to. Okay, so anybody wearing one of these is one of our community, an accredited trainer, a coach, one of my staff, and they can answer questions about these specific designs. And if they can't answer the question, report them to me. All right, so this is a very simple, trivial, personal Kanban board to do, in progress, and done. And this just helps you visualize the work that you yourself might be doing. Then you might get a little clever about it, and you might add a work in progress limit to that so that you personally don't feel so overburdened, but it's still just to do, in progress, and done. You might get a little smarter about it. You might add a bit of personal commitment. So now it's a backlog and next and in progress and done. And actually, this is the wish list. And I'm only committed to things that are in my next. Meanwhile, I'm working on 2 or 3 things that are in progress. And every so often I get to reward myself by reflecting on what I've completed recently. So this is quite an advanced and personally mature personal Kanban board. Then we have aggregated personal Kanban. This is where a few people might have brought their personal Kanban concept into the office. They're doing it in the privacy of their own cubicle or at their own desk with a little tiny board sitting on the desk there. And the boss comes along and says, oh, this would be a great idea. Let's put this up on the wall with 1 lane for everybody. So the boss, and for that matter, anyone else in the department knows what everyone's doing. And this really it's not a pattern that we particularly encourage because it's kind of old school. Let's micromanage everybody and keep an eye on what they're all doing. But it's in our case study literature, and sometimes this is where people have started. Aggregated personal Kanban for a single department or a team. Then we get a team Kanban board. Team Kanban boards look like personal Kanban boards, except they're for more than 1 person. 2 or 3 people. Maybe a few more, but generally not more than about 6. And we use these little avatars. They might be magnetic, if it's a magnetic whiteboard, to represent the individuals. Might have their names, might be cartoon characters. The Tupelo case study with Nina Schwab later, maybe she'll show you some of those. It's also available as a download, the older version of their stories on our website. What about if what you're doing is very nascent and maybe you don't even quite know how you're doing it yet? So you can't model a workflow, but you have this concept that things are in progress for a long time. What if you make the in progress column very wide, and then gradually you slide the ticket across here as you complete the work, as it gets closer to completion. So the horizontal position represents the amount of completion. Again, you'll see that in the Tupelo case study. And you could have a very low maturity, qualitative sense of you're on a conference call and you say, so how done is that task? And the person says, oh, about 80% done. So the ticket ends up there, and then perhaps all the tickets are clustered at 80% done because it's very qualitative and things weren't as done as the person thought they were. And you might eventually get to do this in a more quantitative way, where you actually have some sort of concept of subtasks and you're tracking the completion. So the position on here actually reflects that quantitative data. Now that concept was originally inspired by this, which is a portfolio board from 2009. Project portfolio, the tickets on the board represent projects, and you slide them from 0% complete to 100% complete as the project gets more done. We might use the color of the ticket to represent some risk, like the cost of delay, and the size of the ticket might represent the size of the budget. Small, medium, and large project, small, medium, and large ticket. We might add an extra dimension to this. We could add rows, and that could tell us something about the project. In this case, it's portfolio allocation, strategic, operational, and tactical projects, the contribution they're playing to our business, whether they're long-term investments or tactical would be very short-term returns. Or we might use the vertical space the same way we use the horizontal. Every project starts down at the origin in the bottom left, and as we complete part of it, we slide it to the right, and as we spend either the budget or the schedule, we slide it up. So the position of the ticket actually represents the earned value of the project. If it's down in the bottom right, it's ahead of schedule or it's under budget, and if it's in the upper left, it's very behind schedule or it's very over budget. And you might color code the background a little bit in order to indicate how you feel about a project in any given region on this board. Then we might have a bit of a workflow, but we don't really have WIP limits. What we have are per person WIP limits. So it's like personal Kanban for an entire workflow. And you represent the WIP limit for the individuals by giving them a number of avatars. Again, you'll see that in the Tupelo case study. Quite a few things in our literature and in our training classes represent this. Now, the issue with this is that the system isn't limited. There's an infinite number of tickets in this system potentially, but the people are not overburdened. But there's a lot of tickets that nobody's working on. They're just queuing, waiting, delayed in some way or another. So from a customer perspective, a ticket goes in here. They've no idea where when it's coming out the other end. But the individuals, they feel good about themselves because they're not overburdened. They get to focus on doing reasonably good quality work. And that will definitely help. If you do work with good quality, you don't have to rework it as much. The customer notices the difference, that the quality got better. But the delivery time is still unpredictable. This next pattern, what if you're doing Scrum and it's not working for you and you decide that the problem you have is that the domain you work in, your business, doesn't neatly arrange itself in 2-week time boxes and you want to get rid of those? Well, decoupling the cadence of the planning, the commitment, and the delivery, and you understand how to do this, right? The engagement and the wedding get planned separately, or the engagement happens separate from the wedding planning. And then you just have a limit to the work in progress, and it might not be very sophisticated here. It's just in progress. You don't know what's going on in here, or at least you're not defining it. And this is known as a CONWIP, a constant work in progress. It's a proper pull system, but it's not very sophisticated in terms of comprehending the workflow, the definition of what's happening in the service delivery. Then we get aggregated team Kanban. This begins to look like a proper Kanban board. It's got an entire service delivery workflow. It's got a chain of different activities happening. But we also know this one as the infinite done queue problem, because this isn't an end-to-end pull system. It's a collection of team Kanbans visualized in the same place. And this represents the glass ceiling beyond which few companies have ever got. The first time I saw this in large scale, as a large scale problem, was at Ericsson here in Europe, Scandinavia, but also in Hungary and Ireland. About 5-6 years ago now, perhaps. Then about 3 years ago, I was engaged by Ericsson's big competitor from China called Huawei. So Ericsson is a telephone equipment company, right? They make telephone switching nodes and other telephony technology, and so does Huawei. So I go to Huawei in Shenzhen in China and some of their other offices in Nanjing and Shanghai and Xi'an and various places in China. And I'm working directly with the chief technology officer, who's 98,000 people in his organization. And I tell him that Ericsson got stuck at this point. 3 years later, that was last summer, I'm touring some product units in Xi'an and Nanjing. Every single one of them got stuck at this point, even though I warned them in advance. Because in order to couple this together, now you have to be able to tell the customer, no, I'm sorry, we can't do everything you're pushing on us. It requires what's known as triage discipline. The ability to say, what are we going to work on now based on our capacity, the WIP limit here? What's going to wait until later, and if so, when? And what are we not going to do at all? And that triage capability is often something that the business people do not yet have. They don't have that skill. They don't have a means for feeling comfortable about now versus later versus not at all. They don't have a mechanism for having that discussion. It's a capability they don't have. It requires them not only to change their behavior, but to learn new skills. And sometimes, politically, these delivery people don't have any influence over them whatsoever. In a company like Huawei, the joining point between the business and the delivery organization is the chief technology officer. You've got a silo of 98,000 people who aren't allowed to say anything to the business people. I've seen the same thing in very large banks like BNP Paribas. Their head of corporate governance told me it's not the IT department's job to push back on the business or give them any advice or tell them what should happen now, what should happen later. Their job is just to take orders. Right? So one of the reasons this pattern happens is because this part of the organization is considered to be an army of order takers. And if you look back at some of my keynotes from last year, I did an entire keynote on this problem. The reasons that people fail to get to pull at enterprise scale. There's eight of those reasons in our literature currently. Then we get to real Kanban boards, this style of board where you use the physical space on the board as the Kanban. So the width limit is the number of slots on the board. And then there's this style of board where you use something like magnets to represent the Kanban. You'll see this in the Tupelo case study. And this pattern, this style of board first became popular in the Netherlands and then some other parts of Central Europe about 2009 or thereabouts. And this is a more flexible design than the previous one. It's easier to change the width limit. You can use the magnets to mean different things like done, ready to pull, or blocked with a defect, or blocked with some external issue. Maybe we blocked the A ticket in test here because the testers are working on this I ticket, which is very urgent. And then too many clicks here. The style of Kanban board that I documented in the book, the style that we were using at a company called Corbis in Seattle in 2007. And these are virtual Kanban. Now we just have width limit as a number at the top of the column. This is the most flexible style of design, but it requires the highest level of discipline to actually stick to the limit. There's no physical constraint on what the limit is. You could easily put 10 tickets in this column where it says 3 if you're ignoring the 3. So more discipline required. Then once you get this good, you can start to get more sophisticated. We've talked about discovery Kanban. If you have the whole thing on one board, the discovery part and the delivery part, that's called customer Kanban. If you hear that term, Patrick Steart's around somewhere, so you'll probably hear him talk about that later on in the day. Then you can start to get more sophisticated. Now you've got a pull system. How about we have different classes of service? So depending on how urgent the ticket is, there's different policy that tells us how fast it moves across the board. And we represent the class of service with the color of the ticket. So a bit like if you buy a train ticket or a plane ticket, or even if you just send something in the mail, you can have a first class stamp or a second class stamp. And that tells the post office how they should treat the thing that's in the envelope, how fast it should move. So we can introduce this. It's a style of risk management. It improves customer satisfaction. Or we can have multiple rows on our board. We might have one department that acts as a shared resource to serve different customers or different types of work. A bit like a Starbucks. They don't just make coffee. They don't just make espresso drinks. They make tea. They have pastries. They have things that are heated up in an oven. They have a cold counter with drinks in it, and so on, right? They offer different services, but it's the same staff that provide all of those services. So you represent different work item types, different services with different lanes, and you still have classes of service with different colors, a little bit more sophisticated. This is a two-tiered project Kanban board where the outer tier, the green tickets in this case, might be things like features, something the customer asked for, and the yellow tickets are the children of the green tickets. There's some lower level artifact like user stories. So it's really two Kanban boards, one embedded inside the other one. And you do that for some larger scale things like projects. In our case study literature, case study from mobila.de, which is a Berlin-based website and mobile app for selling used cars, you'll see an example of this where it wasn't for a project, it was for service delivery. And it occurs because the customers don't understand this low-level stuff. It's meaningless to them. What they understand are the higher-level things, the things they asked for. But these are too big to be a single ticket for software development, for example. This is another example of using rows. This is 3 Scrum teams, and there's the two-tiered thing, the customer, big ticket, they break it into small tickets. And then these columns are actually shared services for different things like clinical testing in this example, deployment and customer acceptance. This is the last one of these boards, right? So we've got multiple services and we've got some dedicated teams to those services. And in this case, they're just pairs, but they could be bigger. It doesn't need to be just 2 people. But we've got a team leader, a senior person who's playing the role of service delivery manager. They are responsible and accountable for the tickets that come through that lane. And they have some junior person on their team, some sort of apprentice who's pairing with them and learning that particular skill, that service, that customer, that business domain. And then the rest of the team, they all get avatars because they're generalist or T-shaped people. Now this type of pattern emerges where there is unevenness in the arrival rate of demand for the different services. At different times of year or different times of the month, you have different rates of demand, and therefore you can move these workers around very easily and very flexibly to cope with that demand and keep everything moving. And we refer to this as a labor pool liquidity, or it says improving liquidity through labor pool flexibility. And this is a very advanced risk management technique that's embedded into this design. So we've gone the whole way from a really dumb personal Kanban with visualization of to-do, doing, and done and no WIP limits to this very sophisticated level. And altogether, I've just shown you how many, more than 20 different Kanban designs. They're all valid. But some of these designs are too advanced for your organization to implement. You try to do it, you'll choke on it. People will not be willing to adopt the level of sophistication. All right, we'll come back to these in a moment. First, a little bit on organizational maturity. The model we've got has 7 levels in it. It's been inspired by a number of different things over the years, including the CMMI, but also work by Jerry Weinberg in his 1997 book, Quality Software Management, Volume 1, where he said the first level of maturity is oblivious. We are oblivious to the idea that we need any process or any management whatsoever, that there is ambivalence, that what we're doing is chaotic and we rely on luck and individual heroics. Then, if we work our way up here, the next level, this is the term the CMMI use, emerging. What that means is no consistency of process or outcome, but some kind of management and process is emerging. We might get there. Then next here, I've reversed the CMMI names. Anyone familiar with CMMI, you'll notice I've reversed this. Because how you can manage something you can't define, I'm not really sure about that. They have managed and defined the other way around. So defined means we now have consistency of process. We know what we're doing. We could draw a Kanban board for it. But there is no consistency of outcome. Right? Emerging and defined, well, defined, now we know what we're doing consistently. It's routine, we follow the routine. But if we were in the pizza business, the customer called up and said, hey, can I have a ham and pineapple? And they said, yeah, we'd love to make you a ham and pineapple. And they said, when will it be ready? And we said, we'll get it out to you within a half an hour. And actually what you did is you delivered them a pepperoni and it took 45 minutes. Right? That's level 2 performance. Now sometimes they get the ham and pineapple in a half an hour. So it becomes all very superstitious, and for the customer it's like rolling the dice. I'm going to call them up because last time they did give me the ham and pineapple in a half an hour, maybe it'll happen again. And they roll those dice and no, this time they get just a plain cheese pizza and it takes 40 minutes. Level 3 is where most businesses really need to be. And in fact, if you weren't in IT and you weren't some internal IT department with a monopoly on supplying your business, if you were, say, a pizza restaurant and you weren't at least level 3, you would be out of business within a month. Because nobody buys pizza from a business that regularly supplies the wrong thing and is completely unpredictable on delivery. At level 3, you have consistency of process and consistency of outcome. So we know how to bake pizzas. We have a procedure for that. When we hire new staff, we train them in how we bake pizzas at this restaurant. And then a customer comes and says, I'd like a ham and pineapple. And we say, sure, we'll make you a ham and pineapple. When will it be ready? Oh, in half an hour. And what we consistently give them is a ham and pineapple pizza within a half an hour from now. And they learn that what we give them is what they asked for and that we're a reliable vendor. Level 3 is highly desirable, and yet we're not good at it in the IT world. Now you can argue that the work we do is just a little bit more difficult than making pizzas. But is that an excuse? You're all paid way more than people who work in pizza restaurants are. Right? What if you went to the hospital for some procedure and they accidentally removed a different part of your body? The hospitals, the doctors, the dentists that you deal with, you wouldn't go near them if they weren't at least level 3 maturity. Level 4, quantitatively managed. We know how to make pizza. We deliver the ham and pineapple within a half an hour to the customer's request. Oh, and we can make a profit doing it. And we know the economics of our pizza baking and delivery service. The economics are consistent, they're not random. Now, if you're not good at quality, if you're not good at following routine, if you're not good at delivering on customer expectations, you end up reworking things a lot. And if you have a lot of rework, not only does that make you unpredictable, it makes the economics unpredictable. You actually need to be good at all of these things before you can deliver consistent economics. Level 5, optimizing, the name that the CMMI uses, that means model-driven improvement and a Kaizen culture. What does that mean? Kaizen is a Japanese word meaning continuous improvement. And a Kaizen culture means that anyone in the organization is empowered to suggest new and better ways of doing things. And really, in a company like Toyota, not only are they empowered to make the suggestion, they're empowered to go off and implement it, particularly if they can make the change during their break time or over a lunch period or at the end of their shift and introduce it for the next shift the next day. And it's very much a culture where you seek forgiveness for your innovative ideas if they don't work, rather than seeking permission for them in advance. Now, there are vast swathes of the planet where countries and cultures aren't like that. They are seek permission cultures, where delay happens while someone in some power and authority figure determines whether your idea is a good idea or not before we've even tested it. So this is pretty difficult, but you know, at the moment, who cares? We can't even do this yet. Most of us can't do this. And most of the Kanban market can't get to this level yet. Most of the Agile market's nowhere close to it. And the problem with these lower levels, the heroic manager, the heroic individual, the chaos or the emerging thing and so on, is you can do this with whiteboards and sticky notes. You don't need to buy software from people like Kanbanize. And yet those people would actually like to sell you software because they've all got bills to pay. They've got a living to make. And the real value of their products is at these higher levels. So we need to get the market to the higher level. Why? Because their customers will be delighted. And secondly, because the whole ecosystem of our business environment will work better, because at this level your customers are delighted and therefore there's a value in paying money for some tools to help you do that. Yes, Joel Spolsky made over $400 million selling Trello to Atlassian, but the bottom line is that people weren't paying for Trello, right? For personal Kanban type behavior. They expected that software to be free. People doing personal Kanban, free, or something that's good enough, something that's fit for purpose, is already available for free. Why would I pay? And if I can take my personal Kanban and I can lash it together in a way that my team, my 2 or 3 colleagues can use it, it's still free. And for most of us, there isn't a business model in free. You need to have deep pockets to build a business where you lose money, lose money, lose more money, keep losing money, and then eventually sell the company to somebody else who doesn't mind the fact that you lost a lot of money. Those of you familiar with Agile might be familiar with a software called Rally that was acquired by Computer Associates. Rally lost money every single year of its existence since 2003. Never made a profit. Company was sold for over $400 million eventually. But it's a pretty high-risk approach to running a business. Lose money, keep losing money, hope for the best. Jerry Weinberg identified a higher level in his model. He called it congruent, level 6 in this model. Congruent means that you've got a strategy and everything that happens in your organization is aligned with your strategy. And congruent means that you've got a declared set of values, that you understand your identity, and that everything that happens in your organization is aligned with your values. There's congruence in the decisions and actions of all of the leaders. And that means other things need to be true. You need to have a capability to sense the market, to sense external conditions changing and respond accordingly. Otherwise, you'll be incongruent with the market. The market now wants pepperoni pizza and you only make ham and pineapple. And I refer to that concept as being continually fit for purpose, that a truly congruent organization is one that is capable of surviving through a significant discontinuity, some significant punctuation point that might be political, it might be economic, it might be a change in market, or it might be as a consequence of a disruptive technology innovation. So we've got this 7-level model here, some other stuff on the side which we'll get to in a different slide. Now it turns out that all of the Kanban boards I showed you earlier can be mapped against different levels of maturity. And we see these in our case study literature. So as I'm popping these on the slide here, the idea is that, say you took this style of board here, this one a bit like the magnetic boards in the Tupelo case study, and you tried to implement it at a lower level of maturity, you will fail. That there isn't an example in our case study literature of it working at a lower level. At a lower level, an organization like Tupelo might have had a board like this, where they were sliding the tickets from the left to the right. Then that part of the business matured, and then it looked more like this. So by collecting case studies and examining different Kanban board designs, it became possible to comprehend that certain styles, certain patterns of board work in different organizations. And now we've been able to codify that. And all of that learning, all of that experience of Kanban coaches that we've captured from case studies, not just the ones we've published, but everyone who comes to our Train the Trainer class has to present a case study. We see about 100 of them every year. And then if you look around the world, we do up to 10 of these conferences around the world every year. And there's always people presenting at the conferences, case studies, and we capture those videos. So we've got a lot of case study literature, a big body of experience to lean on to come up with this understanding. So we knew that all of this a year ago, more than a year ago. And since then, what we've been working on is codifying it so that it's democratized, it's more easily accessible to people who don't have years of experience of doing this. And the codification's now in the maturity model. And you've got the poster of this is the marketing level with the 7 levels, 0 through 6. And you'll notice that we're showing it from 0 to 6 going down, and I'll explain that in a moment. And to the left-hand side, we're documenting some benefits at each level. The main benefit at these lower levels is relief from overburdening. Rather than feeling individually stressed, having too much work to do, not being able to do things with good quality, feeling of being unable to complete things adequately, not feeling good about the work you're doing, unable to take a pride in it, the feeling that you work in an abusive environment and you wish it wasn't like that, but you need to collect your paycheck and pay your bills and put your kids through school and deal with the health issues of your elderly parents and so on, right? We all have real life that constrains us, and sometimes it's difficult to break out of the abusive environment, so you just put up with it. But it stresses you, it stresses your family, and it's not good for anyone's health. So relief from overburdening is what people are seeking at these shallow levels of maturity and shallow levels of Kanban implementation. Then we get to level 3, and what's happening there is that we're actually delivering on customer expectations. We now consistently, reliably deliver what the customer expects. Once we get a bit further down, the benefits are things like organizational agility. if you're really good at doing Kanban, your organization largely consists of a network of services. And those services can be recomposed in order to deliver new things, to create a new external facing service which is made up of other services. You just glue them together. And you've got a top level Kanban board that's calling other Kanban boards. And better risk management, the idea that we've got consistent and perhaps improving economics, and that we're capable of hedging bets, and then eventually survivability, the ability to consistently understand what's going on in our environment and take appropriate actions in order to keep going for a very long time. Now there's this big detailed map, and we have this poster somewhere in the building. There's only one for the moment, and the community members get this as a download. This prints out on A0. And this one will go through some significant revision between now and November the 8th. So expect to see 2 or 3 versions of this as we get more input. Yesterday we spent the day with Patrick Stewart and Todd Little doing some revision on it, and next week we're in Bilbao with a few German guys, Theodora and I, producing yet more updates to this. This stuff I talked about, it's just the release schedule. Let's talk a little bit about the architecture and make it a little easier to see here. This is just a very boring spreadsheet that that covers the same functionality. Now what we've got across the top here are the Kanban general practices: visualize, limit WIP, manage flow, and marshal options. That's the term we use for the upstream, marshalling the options. Make policies explicit, feedback loops, improve collaboratively, evolve experimentally. So the 6 general practices of the Kanban method that we've known for 7 years, and then we've got the 7 levels of the maturity model going down here. Right, so if any of you, perhaps not many in this audience, were familiar, 5 years ago we had something called the Depth of Kanban Assessment Framework. That is being obviated by this, right? So the Depth of Kanban Assessment Framework is no more, and we're replacing it with the Kanban Maturity Model, and now we talk about breadth of Kanban and depth of maturity. So we go from 0 down to 6 and across the general practices, and therefore in any one box on this chart, what you get are specific practices, specific Kanban board designs, ticket designs, different artifacts we use in performing Kanban in each of the boxes, specific practices that map to the general practices, and you can look at the poster out in the exhibit area. Another innovation that's on this chart is that each of the levels is divided into what we call transition practices, and in this diagram it says main, but you'll see in the more recent version it's called core. If you are at level 2, you can implement level 3 transition practices with relatively little or no resistance, but they will not get you to level 3. What they're doing is they're preparing the culture, preparing the people, making it easier to adopt the more difficult core practices that are required to achieve the next level. And that's a real innovation compared to maturity models that have preceded it, where there wasn't any guidance on what do I do next. Right? You're at level 2, and what do you do next is everything at level 3. And you try to do that, and your organization chokes on it, and you never get any further than level 2. And if you're the change agent, you might get fired because someone feels you wasted a lot of time and energy and money not achieving the result. So What we've done to identify these is look at case study literature where, say, a solidly level 2 organization is doing stuff that isn't required for level 2. They were doing it, they were happy enough with it, and those same things existed in case studies that were also at level 3. But the level 3 organizations were doing a little bit more. So we believe this is going to help nudge adoption in the right direction by providing better guidance to leaders, coaches, managers who are trying to nudge their organization down to deeper level of maturity, mainly because they want the benefits. Who wouldn't want a bit of customer satisfaction? Well, there are businesses you can probably name who just don't give a damn. Royal Dutch Airlines, perhaps. Ryanair. Yeah. Actually, that's a better example given the recent news. So there are companies where literally they don't value good customer service. They are condemned to never be better than level 2. Right, so I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit. Shallow Kanban, maturity levels 0 through 2. So this term shallow Kanban's been around for 8 or 9 years. And what it meant was people who think they're doing Kanban, but they're not doing it right yet. Now, to get rid of this pejorative thing, we replaced that term in most of our literature with the term proto-Kanban. And that came from an academic called Richard Turner, software engineering academic and author, because he observed in our case studies that often companies started with these shallow Kanban and then it got better, it got deeper, and eventually they get to the real thing and they get the benefits that you would get at the real level. So proto-Kanban implied start with these simple versions and you'll gradually evolve to get something better. And that's better coaching, it's better parenting. So that worked better, but for now, we're going to refer to these as shallow Kanban. So levels 0 through 2, oblivious, emerging, and defined, the main benefit is relief from overburdening, and the sub-bullets here: improved transparency, improved collaboration, higher trust, greater empathy, basic understanding of workflow, at least by level 2, improved quality of work, and happier workers. And who wouldn't want that? But often, the issue at these shallow levels is that our culture is focused on who we are. We're a Scrum team. We do Scrum, that's what we do. And because we're a Scrum team, we do planning poker, and we do estimation, and we can't possibly not do these things because we're a Scrum team. And if someone came along and said, you have to replace that behavior with something else to get to level 3, they don't care. Because they wouldn't be a Scrum team if they stopped doing that. Right? If your focus is on who you are, you will never reach deeper levels of maturity and the benefits that come from it. And if you want an explanation for some of the shocking things happening in global politics over the last year or two, it's all identity related. Right. For those of you from Catalonia who might get to vote in an election next weekend, relatively recently the British had a general election. A large number of working class Scottish people voted for the Conservative government. There was only one Conservative MP in Scotland before the election. There's something like 10 now. And it was like poor working class or even not working, unemployed people who voted for the Conservatives. So what caused that to happen? Because they hate the Polish people who live in Edinburgh doing the jobs that they are either not qualified to do or don't want to do. It's all about who are we? We are Scottish and we don't like these Polish people who've come here and taken all our jobs. Right? Low maturity organizations, low maturity countries, they're focused on who they are. Low maturity leaders focus on that. And we call it popularism or nationalism. Right? It's the same effect. Right, moving on to level 3, what makes the difference? The cultural focus is now on why. Why we exist. Not who we are, but why. If we understand the why, we could change the who. If the reason we exist is to serve customers better, then who gives a damn whether we do planning poker or not? If we have to replace that with something else in order to be better at the why, then we'll do it. So, shorter lead times, faster, smoother flow, predictability, SLAs met, disruptions eliminated, actionable metrics, and happy customers. Level 3. But to get there, you need why. And this concept of why we exist, the purpose, and having alignment behind that purpose. In management literature, that's known as Einheit. It comes from a military doctrine called Auftragstaktik in German, or mission command in English. And it means alignment and unity behind a defined or understood purpose. So leaders have to create the Einheit. They have to communicate the why. Why are we here? Why does our business exist? And why did our customer come to us? What does the customer want? Why do they want it? What do we need to do in order to satisfy that customer? And moving on to levels 4 and 5, bundled these together, quantitatively managed and optimizing. Organizational agility, service orientation, reconfigurable shared services, workforce flexibility, you saw that pattern. Risk hedging, quantitative analysis, dynamic scheduling, happy shareholders, and a lot of portfolio management behavior in here. So level 2, happy workers. Level 3, happy workers and happy customers. Level 4, happy workers, happy customers, happy shareholders, or if it's a public sector organization, happy voters. Happy taxpayers. Level 6. Right, a level 6 organization is capable, I've skipped over this just briefly here, right? What we do and how we do it. So level 4 and 5 organizations, they understand who we are. We understand why we do it, and now we're focused on what we do and how we do it in order to get better at the why. And we're willing to challenge the why, change the why from time to time, and we're willing to change the who, to challenge the who, change that from time to time. A level 6 organization can challenge all of them. How, what, why, and who. Because you know what? The external environment changed on us. And now we need to decide, would we like to stay in business and keep going into the future, or would we just rather fold things up, shut down, and let everyone go find a job somewhere else? Survivability, therefore, is the main benefit at level 6, built to last. And in Spanish companies, that can mean multi-generational. We run into businesses here in Spain and other parts of Southern Europe. Maybe it's a 150-year-old company. And the current chief executive is the patriarch. He's the current granddaddy, but he's actually the great-grandson of the founder. And all of a sudden, the whole world's changing on him very fast. New technologies are arriving. And competitors are doing things in ways that they've never seen before. And now he's thinking, oh wow, this could kill our business. And you know what? I inherited it from my father, and he inherited it from his father. And my job was to be the custodian and hand it on to my children and my children's children. And suddenly that legacy's in jeopardy. That's what's motivating Spanish companies to come to Kanban, to find people like Teodora to help them deal with this problem. They want long-term security. They need the ability to sense and respond and move a lot faster. Otherwise, the multi-generational legacy is lost. So, surprise today. Over the summer, I got a little inspired, and together with my friend Alexei Zegloff, I wrote a book. And we're giving you all a copy of that book today. I have no idea how we're doing it, but apparently we are. The thing is, this is what's called a galley copy. That means it's a beta. It's a beta release. And you will find, like most betas, there are a few bugs in it. But if you wanted to wait for the general release, that will be the end of November at the Lean Kanban France in Paris. And we might sell you those books, where today we're giving you these galley copies, these pre-release copies for free, complimentary. And I'm guessing that based on what Teodora just said, they're not in the building yet. We're expecting them delivered later today. So hopefully you'll get this new book. Right, so concluding here, we're a minute or two over. We're committed to the Kanban maturity model. Right, it's the path to enterprise scale business agility. We believe this is the road to solving a lot of this glass ceiling problem we've seen at the shallow Kanban, the infinite done queue problem. They're not doing it properly. They're not getting the deeper benefits. The happy customers, the happy shareholders, the better risk management, the improving economics, the survivability. We're committed to much more accessible materials, and hopefully from what is the Kanban maturity model and explaining it to your colleagues, you'll find flyers like this very useful. Of course, this is an alpha release, right? There will be a new version in November that you should be able to download from our website and print out for yourself. Right. So new posters, plain language, clear benefits. We're also committed to comprehensive guidance, great big A0 posters, and a book that goes with this that Teodora and I are working on called Essential Kanban Maturity Model. And it turns out that on here there's 160 practices. It takes a long time to describe all of those, so it's not quite ready yet. Still working on it. Right, evidence-based, pragmatic, actionable at every level. That I'd rather leave some of this stuff blank than guess what should be in there and then let the case studies emerge over time. We're committed to new materials like the new book, this fit-for-purpose book. If you can implement the stuff that's in this book, you'll find level 4 and 5 a lot easier. It's not everything you might need to do at level 4 and 5, but it'll take you a long way. General reading business books, you'll see that when you get the text. Accessible, meaningful, useful for senior leaders. Hopefully this book is sufficiently accessible, you can give it to your boss and he will find it interesting and entertaining and he might actually read it. And committed to Spanish language guidance. Teodora, when will this be ready? It's ready. Is it a download? Because I couldn't find it on our website. So we have this book upstairs. So this is the official guide for the Kanban method, now available in Spanish, and it's real Spanish. For anyone who was aware of the translation of my Kanban book from 2010, that unfortunately was in Mexican. And as a consequence, it hasn't done very well here in Spain. Catalonian is unlikely, but ask me again next year. So with that, thanks very much. Thank you for coming today. I'm sure that there's a lot of great content to come during the day, and please enjoy the conference.